Welcome, everyone, to our live Browns post-game podcast, Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe here with Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock. Lance Reisland is going to join us in a little bit, too, to go over what he saw. But starting off with Kay and Ashley here on the pod. Let's go ahead and get to it. Of course, the Browns 32-13 losers in this football game. And Kay, I'll start with you. Obviously, they had so much positive momentum coming out of that Miami game. People were feeling good about where things stood, but now here we are a week later, and it feels like we're kind of just back in the same spot. You know, it feels like we're just back in that same spot with this offense, with this defense doing so much of the heavy lifting, and just kind of back to where we were 2 weeks ago.
Well, 2-6 starts to feel kind of hopeless. If they could have come in here and gotten this victory and improved to 3-5, with the games that they have coming up after this, it seemed like there was going to be a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, that maybe they could kind of claw their way back into this a little bit. But now it seems a little hopeless again, and that's in large part because they really got their tails kicked. The Browns offense just couldn't do anything once again. It's pathetic. It's hard to watch, and it's hard to see what the fix is going to be. I certainly don't think that going to Shedeur Sanders would be the fix and would be a tremendous help, since they have so many young guys. They're struggling so much. They're not getting anything out of their receivers necessarily. So I don't know if that would do anything for them or not. But right now, 2-6 without being able to score most of the time more than about 13 points or 10 points is not going to cut it.
Yeah, no, look, I already know. I haven't waded into the chat yet. I already know what it's going to be. I know where it's going to go. Once I do open that up and look at it, I know what people are going to be arguing about. We're certainly going to talk about that. But Ashley, I mean, Kevin Stefanski said he's not going to make that quarterback change. So at least as of right now on Sunday night, that's off the table. But when you look at this offense, like, it's just, to me, again, this goes back to this idea of this is more than just a quarterback problem. Now, the quarterback is part of the problem, a big part of the problem, but there's just so many structural issues with this offense right now. I'm not sure what the easy fix is. I don't know if an easy fix exists.
Yeah, I don't either. That's also basically what I wrote in my first story I put up once we got back from the locker room about the receivers and the issues there, right? I mean, wide receivers accounted for 2 of 21 catches today, and both of those catches were by Jamari Thrash. Jerry Jeudy, 0 for 2, didn't get a target until early in the fourth quarter, which, just to Mary Kay's point, unacceptable when that's your top receiver. That is your surefire number 1 receiver. He was a Pro Bowl receiver last year, had over 1,000 yards. And look, I know Jerry Jeudy has been struggling. We've obviously pointed out a lot when he has struggled and the drops this year, especially for him. But you can't go a full game basically and not target him. And by the time you're targeting him, it's too late. And one of those targets definitely, I thought, was just a poorly placed too high throw on the part of Dylan Gabriel. The second one, the fourth down target, Mary Kay and I were talking about it, and I'm like, I could see an argument either way for saying it wasn't the best throw. I did think Christian Gonzalez just had a good angle. The other side of that is when you are a Pro Bowl receiver, I think those are the kinds of contested catches you have to make, especially in that situation. Isaiah Bond, I've seen enough of Isaiah Bond getting this many targets for right now. People were coming at me on Twitter all afternoon for suggesting that. And look, I think the problems are so widespread, but one of the problems to me is undeniably the fact that your number 2 receiver right now is an undrafted rookie who missed most of training camp because of off the field issues and he wasn't drafted. Like, he just doesn't have the experience yet to be in this role. And it goes back to, for me, how this pass catching core is built. And I know they want to rely on their tight ends. I know they want to get Quinshon Judkins involved in the pass game. That's great. Those guys made a majority of the catches today. But the problem is right now there is 0 downfield threat. We watched the Patriots put 6 guys at the line today to stop Quinshon Judkins, and it worked. He had 19 yards for 9 carries. And beyond, as Mike Vrabel said, the gimmick stuff, then they played pretty good defense. So beyond the script, that was it. And I thought that was the story of the game.
Okay, well, look, let's just talk about it, Mary Kay. why not Shedeur Sanders right now? Or do you think Kevin should consider Shedeur Sanders?
No, I don't really think so, because I just don't think that that is really going to help right now. Of course, there's only one way to find out, and that would be to try it. But you don't want Shedeur Sanders to completely lose his confidence either if he tries to attempt a deep pass to, say, an Isaiah Bond and gets it picked off. And if he isn't seeing the field and getting sacked a bunch. So I don't know if that's the fix. I think the offense is really going so bad in so many ways right now that could be even more harmful, believe it or not. I mean, Joe Flacco couldn't do anything with this offense. Dylan Gabriel can't do much with this offense. Would Shedeur Sanders really be able to? I almost think that it needs another veteran presence to stabilize the whole thing, but not even 100% sure that would happen. What I would be doing right now is I would be adding a receiver in a trade. I'd probably try to trade for a receiver, one that could help you for multiple years. And then after the bye week, I would be turning play calling over to Tommy Rees just to see if he can get anything more out of this offense, see what he can do. They need to try something. You've got to just keep searching around the offense to find ways you can make changes. So I would probably do that. Who knows if it'll work? But, it's almost a desperate move at this point. They absolutely can't sustain what they have going on right now. So those are some of the things that I would do. And then I've mentioned this before, and it sounds crazy, absolutely crazy, and I know it. But they've got Deshaun Watson waiting in the wings. And there could come a time where they open up that practice window and somehow get him back on the field this season. And with the way this season is going, I know it sounds nuts, but I could see something like that happening at somewhere down the road.
Okay, well, now I'm just not going to open up the chat. Okay, so thank you for that. Everybody in the YouTube chat, just so you know, I'm not even going to open up the chat because Deshaun Watson's name came up. But that's where things are right now. Like, I don't know what the answer is. And Ashley, like to the Shedeur Sanders thing, I think personally we are getting to a point where that becomes a real discussion. I know a lot of people want that to be a real discussion right now. Kevin, at least as of today, ruled that out. So it's not on the table. I do think one of the changes they should make is it is probably time to shorten that leash on Dylan Gabriel, because the other part of this is, while I don't think Shador is a fix-all for this offense, man, are you going to look bad if you do turn things over to Shedeur Sanders and all of a sudden, like, it's just a matter of, hey, man, he was super accurate. And now these receivers look good again. Again, I think there's more to it than that. I worry about how he deals with pressure. I've been over this stuff a million times. I don't think that's the answer yet. That doesn't mean that I'm saying Dylan Gabriel is the answer. I think that's, people make this like one way or another argument where it's like, well, if you say Shador is not the answer, then you think Dylan is. No, I don't, not based on what I've seen. But I don't know that Shador comes in and fixes everything. And I don't know, I guess you take the bye week, you kind of throw everything you have at this, see if you can fix this thing around Dylan Gabriel. But I would shorten that leash a lot here when we come out of this bye week and the Browns take on the Jets.
So the thing about Dylan, obviously the 2 interceptions today, like to me, that dam was going to break at some point because the PFF numbers, and plus we counted them with our own eyeballs and brains, are the fact that before today and his other starts, there were 6 turnover-worthy plays, right? I mean, the Steelers game alone, there were 4 dropped interceptions. So my thing has been with Dylan Gabriel, he starts, okay, you want him to protect the football, you want him to process, and he still like kind of isn't really doing those things, even though the numbers are on his side. So where I can empathize with the people who do want to see Shador, what we know Shador is good at is the ball placement and the accuracy, right? So to me, I'm like, maybe he would fare better than Dylan there. But I do also worry about what Mary Kay is talking about. I don't think you should put him in a bad position and set him up to fail in these starts because so many other things are a mess, because you don't have anyone that he can consistently throw the football to. I think that would not be in his best interest or in the best interest of the team. But I'll tell you what, to your point, Dan, with each passing game where Dylan Gabriel, we aren't seeing that processing and that ball placement isn't so great, it is only going to make, I think, the clamoring for Shedeur Sanders louder. And I it's going to get to a point where even right now, like I don't blame the people that want to see Shador, because what has there been exciting about this offense this season? There has not been much. And there is this idea among fans that, hey, maybe this is somebody who can bring some of that excitement. But I would just caution, like the pass catching core right now just feels like such a mess to me. I'm like 100% on board with Mary Kay's idea of they need to trade for a receiver. And we've been talking about this for 3 years, and I'm like, are they finally going to do it? Because they've never handled that room, I don't think, how we've thought they should handle that room from like 2022 on.
Yeah, I mean that's why this becomes like such a complicated, like, again, that's why I think this is so much more complicated of a discussion than just put Shedeur Sanders in the game. Now, to someone's point in the chat, I did wade into the chat, by the way. Somebody did say, hey, Shador's going to throw the ball down the field. And you know what? You're right. He is going to throw the ball down the field, and he's going to be really accurate in the red zone. But again, it's all that other stuff, right? How does he deal with the pressure? The process, all the warts that he had coming out of college, right? Like, has that actually improved? We're not going to know until he plays any games. Mary Kay, to your point about oh boy, to your point about Deshaun Watson, I do think I think one of the reasons that becomes unrealistic to me is by the time he's ready to play, I guess I wonder what's even the point. Because at that point you should be looking at Shedeur Sanders, because I mean maybe this team beats the Jets, maybe they beat the Raiders. I don't know what the Ravens are going to look like by then, but Lamar Jackson's getting healthy. That's a team that's going to be trying to make a push. So I don't think you're getting back into this thing no matter what you do at quarterback. So that's the one thing. And we've been saying on this pod, like, it wouldn't shock me if we saw Deshaun Watson again. I do think it would benefit this team more, just regardless of how the offense looks, regardless of everything else. It would benefit this team more to take a look to get Shedeur Sanders on the field more than it would benefit them to, if in that unlikely event that Deshaun Watson is cleared to play and they want to put him out there, it would benefit them more to look at Shedeur Sanders than to put Deshaun Watson out there.
Right. And, even bringing up the name of Deshaun Watson, and I know what a lightning rod that is. I do understand that. But just with how crazy this is all going, you could almost see it happening, even though it just seems ludicrous to do that. I agree with you that if you get to the point where you want to make a change, you would probably want to see Shedeur Sanders up next. But what if it doesn't work out? What if he goes in there and he truly isn't ready? What if he dropped to the fifth round for all the reasons everybody has talked about, and it doesn't go as well as a lot of fans hope it's going to go? Now, maybe it will go that well. Maybe it will. And I think there will come a point where everyone's going to get to find out. They're going to get to see it. But I think the Browns also want the conditions to be right for Shedeur. They don't want to put him in there and throw him to the wolves. And so they have to make sure that they're playing him at a time when he is not going to lose his confidence, where he's not going to have a game like he did against the Rams in preseason. And that was extenuating circumstances. Of course, we know that. But you don't want him to go out there and get sacked a bunch of times. And we talk about his accuracy and that he'll throw the ball downfield. Well, that's all well and good if you have the time to do that. But if you're getting hit while you're trying to throw that ball down the field, it's not going to be an accurate football. It's not. I mean, accuracy comes with precision. We always hear Kevin talk about the precision of this passing game. And if that is not there, then he's not going to be the accurate quarterback that he was at Colorado when he led the FBS with a 74% completion percentage. He has to have time to throw. We know that he retreated a lot. We know he took a lot of sacks. I mean, look at Drake May. Drake May holds the ball and takes a lot of sacks. And if he's going to do that still at this point, when he's now 2 years in and has started a lot of games, what leads us to believe that Shedeur Sanders isn't going to do that? And Drake May also has the explosives to go with some of those negative plays that he takes. Would Shedeur be able to do that? These are all things that you have to take into account. And I do think there will come a point where fans will get to see what they want. Everybody will probably get their wish at some point, but the conditions have to be right.
Yeah, and look, I know the response to this is why should we trust them? But there's only a few people that actually 100% truly know what Shador looks like on the practice field and what's going on in the meeting rooms and what he's doing away from the field, right? Like there's only a hand those people, Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Reese, Bill Musgraves, obviously his teammates, all of those people, but we don't. Now, obviously, Mary Kay, you've done a lot of reporting on it. So you have that. But in this situation, and again, maybe the response to this, and maybe it's the right response is, well, why should we trust them? Honestly, at this point, I don't know. I mean, they won 3 games last year, and they've won 2 games this year, and the offenses look terrible. So I don't know. Maybe they're just wrong. But we're just sort of at a point where if they don't feel like they're comfortable putting him into the game, there's probably a reason for it. And if they did feel comfortable, maybe they would consider making that switch more realistically. Like they're the only people who are seeing how this looks every minute of every day. And the nature of this is we just sort of have to trust their evaluation at this point. And maybe they're wrong. They could definitely be wrong. I wouldn't rule that out. But that's sort of where this is at. We have to trust that there's a reason they don't want to just hand this thing over to Shador right now.
Well, I also wonder about this idea too, like how much is stubbornness playing into a factor in terms of, I know that has a negative connotation, but if they decided, look, we want to see Dylan Gabriel string together some of these starts, right? Like that's what they want. We typically see them when they have a plan, they stick to it. If there's like a number in their mind in terms of a week, like we don't want to see Shedeur before week X, like we want to take that time with him, then I think there is very little, barring an injury or something unexpected, that would make them change that plan. Like we see it time and time again. I mean, last year, I always just think back to last year with Deshaun Watson, when obviously things were going terrible and they were not entertaining the idea of benching him until obviously he gets hurt. I think about even back in 2021 when Baker Mayfield was really struggling, when we watched him throw 4 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers and they still wouldn't bench him. Like we've seen them do these things where, especially with their quarterbacks, when they have a plan, they stick to it. Sometimes I don't agree with it or think it's the right plan, but I do think like that sort of stubbornness is always on the forefront of my mind when it comes to this position. And we know how much they liked Dillon Gabriel, how high they were on him. And like, I don't know if they're going to be right? Like the way they talk about him is great, but we have a long way to go for him to prove like that processing and all the things they saw in him that they really liked. But I think it's where they still are. And we know once they like somebody, it takes a lot to make them want to like move on from that person.
Yeah, I will say some some of this rings a little hollow when we watched a guy get called for intentional grounding on a throwaway, or on an incompletion. Or, I'm sorry, he got called for a safety on an intentional grounding out of the end zone. We've been here a long time. Words are hard. Got called for a safety on an intentional grounding out of the end zone. Like that's the sort of stuff that if you are going to tout like his processing, his decision making, all of that, like those are the mistakes you can't make. And we're just not seeing with him. So before I let you guys go, I do want to spend a little bit of time on Kevin, obviously, because he has talked about, they're going to, like he likes to do at the bye, right? They're going to tear everything down and they're going to put it back together, right? They're going to try and figure this thing out. When you kind of look at this offense and, if we were doing like a blame pie, right? We know that the quarterback is part of it. We know that the roster is part of it. We know that the coaching is part of it. How much responsibility in your mind, Mary Kay, do you think Kevin carries with this? How much, I mean, whatever, if you don't want to put a percentage on it, that's fine. How much is on Kevin? How much is on Andrew Berry? How much is on like, man, come on, Jerry Jeudy, just catch the football. Like how much blame realistically do you think Kevin kind of deserves in all of this?
I think you can divide this pie up in so many different ways. And I think it's probably an eighth for everybody. And I would probably make equal little slivers of pie. And so Kevin's getting an eighth of the pie because you can't absolve him for a 2-6 record and some of the things that are going on. And there have been times where you have to wonder, about some of the play calling and why aren't they sticking with the run, or why aren't they trying something different, or why aren't they trying more gimmicks if two worked, or one out of two worked, whatever. It does seem like he deserves some of the blame in this, and he would tell you that he does. Of course, he's not going to point the finger at anybody else and not take a good, long, hard look at himself over this bye. That's why I think, hey, if you have to try something, turn that play calling over to Tommy and just see if something can't happen with that. But I have to give him equal blame that I would to the other probably 7 aspects of the offense right now.
Yeah, again, I think that it's, again, he keeps saying this. There's so many elements to this, and I think Kevin is a big part of it. And he is the play caller. He's the guy that this was supposed to be Kevin Stefanski's offense, right? The thing that, like, finally Kevin was taking back the offense. It was supposed to work. It was supposed to look like we saw in 23 or 2020, all of that stuff, and it just hasn't. And I think that Kevin and Andrew specifically, I think they have to share in this blame, because Kevin probably needs to do a better job just in general. But Andrew also didn't give him a lot to work with at receiver. And, they had to sign Cam Robinson just to save their left tackle position. Like, there's just a lot of blame to go around. Now, I'm glad we're sharing this pie. I'm glad we're handing it out and everybody gets equal pieces too. Dylan Gabriel deserves a piece, and Jerry Jeudy deserves a piece, and Andrew and Kevin, they all deserve pieces. So again, I don't think it's as simple as this is all Kevin's fault. But obviously, Ashley, yes, he does deserve to share in the blame because he's the head coach and he's the play caller. Like, this is his offense and it's not working.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much blame to go around. I think a lot of the problems we talk about with this team do go back to how this team is built and philosophically how they go about building it, and things that just don't make sense. The receiver room being one, leaving yourself short at tackle for a second straight year being another. These things are maddening, right? And there is only so much that you can do. The fact that there's not a consistent downfield threat. I think where you can obviously place that blame is like when you're a head coach, you do have to work with what you are given and you have to find ways to be innovative. Like, I think Kevin O'Connell is pretty good at that. I brought up that example before. It's not like Kevin O'Connell was out there with a bunch of Pro Bowlers when he comes out and engineers an 80-yard drive to beat the Cleveland Browns. Like, he has Carson Wentz and 4 backup offensive linemen. Now, the caveat to all that is it sure helps Carson Wentz when you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and your front office has really prioritized that pass catching core. Like, to me, it truly is all these things being connected. Again, I'm the Charlie Day meme from It's Always Sunny. There's like red yarn and a bulletin board behind me. And so much of it is connected. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, is the head coach not innovative enough, or can he not be as innovative as he could be because of the roster constraints and because of the players being in a slump, right? So I think the best way to assign blame is Mary Kay's method of equal sized pie slices for everyone.
Okay. Hey, look, we ended this segment of the pod by giving everybody some pie. So good for us. Okay, I'm going to let Mary Kay and Ashley go, and then I'm going to bring Lance in. So we will, let's see again. Always the challenge. There we go. They're gone. Talk to you guys later. Here comes Lance into the show. Lance, have I got you?
How are you?
Oh, I can hear you. You can hear me. We're
Very
good
nice.
to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. So look, we were talking about the blame pie there before you came on, and how much goes on Kevin, how much goes on Andrew, how much goes on Dillon Gabriel, how much goes on, I phrased it, Jerry Jeudy, just catch the freaking ball, right? That's been an issue all year. As you're watching this game, and as that offense is struggling, where do you think the blame lies? Is it across the board? Is it on one person? Where do you think the blame lies right now with where this offense is at?
Well, the coordinator and the quarterback are always going to get more credit and more criticism than they deserve. I believe wholeheartedly that everybody has their hand in this, and Kevin as well. The play calling at times, especially getting away from the run. Then you have Dillon, who is has been under pressure, works the ball underneath, has missed some throws, some big chunk throws he's missed. then you have drops, then you have pass protection, then you have defensive breakdowns that there's so many things that go along with this complementary football stuff. The easiest response will be, change the quarterback. I really don't, I've always been a believer that, if you change the quarterback because you need a pick me up or you need something to go on, you need a change. Only the coordinator and the quarterback are the positions that can do that. But I will say, in my experience in football, if the pieces are struggling around the quarterback, then you're just throwing more gasoline on the fire, and it's going to be hard to evaluate who's ever at quarterback right now. Now, if you think it's a spark, then I'm always in agreement with the coach if you think you need a spark. But for me right now, he's just one of the issues. He's got his hand in it. Don't get me wrong, but he's just one of the issues, and they got a lot of holes, and there's a definite talent gap in their skill positions.
So the question is, and as you can imagine, Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have been a big topic so far on this pod.
I think no way.
Yeah, right.
I got you.
I think the question, like, if you made this change, right? If you did decide to come out, and Kevin has already said he's not going to do it. So, like, honestly, in that regard, it's kind of a moot point right now. But I guess I'll just put it this way, right? Like, Mary Kay was throwing the scenario, like the what ifs, right? Well, what if Shador is more accurate? What if he is just better pushing the ball down the field? What if he is able to deal with that pressure and not take a bunch of sacks and all of that? What if he does sort of spark this offense? Is that in the back of your mind at all? Just this idea that, like, it's sort of the known versus the unknown. We know what Dylan Gabriel is. We've seen the limitations. We've seen it not work with him. Shedeur Sanders is the unknown right now, and everybody's always fascinated with the unknown. And we watched his college tape, and we saw some things that were like, man, this might really work in Kevin Stefanski's offense. And so I think when the team is struggling like this, you get really fascinated with that unknown. What if that unknown is just really awesome? Is that in the back of your mind at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely, especially because it's the only position that you can really change in football, even though it's a team game, that's really going to have an impact on change, that or the play caller. So, yeah, I mean, once again, I will disagree with you on one thing, though. I don't think we know what Dylan Gabriel is. I really don't. And I think he's shown his limitations, but I don't think he's ever a guy that you're going to win because of. But it also shows the limitations they have at other skill positions. So whatever you think, whatever Shador can do, obviously you have to give him a fighting chance, just like you've given Dylan a fighting chance. And if you think he can be a spark, then I think that, as a football coach, you're always looking for it, whether it's warranted or not. And I don't think sitting Dylan is as warranted as other people, but I would understand it if you're looking for a spark and you think, you think that maybe we know he can push the ball downfield pretty successfully. He's going to have trouble doing that if they drop it and don't have pass protection. We also know that he holds onto the ball a lot, so is he going to take some strip sacks? There's some things that I would like him, just like I would like Dylan, to get a fighting chance. I think those guys are both talented, but again, in the game of football, the backup quarterback's always the easiest option when things are going bad. And like I said, it'd be different if it was if he didn't have his hand in it, which he does, and if he was the only issue they had. If you're like, God, these receivers are getting open and protection's great, and he just can't hit it. I think that's part of it, and it's always the easiest solution, and I understand it.
Yeah, and that's not to, I don't even say that to, like, belittle the idea of, like, let Shador play. Because I think that's a legitimate discussion right now. I really do. I personally don't think it changes this offense significantly. I do think there is going to come a point, and I think it should be, I think that, I said this in the first half, I think that leash on Dillon Gabriel should be shortening a little bit right now. And you've got to see what he is before you go into this offseason where you've got these 2 first-round picks. And I don't know what this quarterback class has been pretty uninspiring so far, but you're going to have an opportunity to go a different direction and try and fix this position long-term. So you need to know, at least, you're not going to get a definitive answer, but you need to have an idea, where does Dylan Gabriel fit? Where does Shedeur Sanders fit? Do either of them fit as part of the future? You need to at least have an idea of that before you go into this offseason. So again, you're going to have to see Shedeur Sanders at some point. But as of right now, they don't seem to be in any kind of rush to put him out there. And we're just sort of in this position where we have to trust the only people that are seeing what's happening behind the scenes and seeing what's happening behind closed doors, and basically like tying their jobs to a 5'10" quarterback who has struggled. Now, I don't know that they're going to blow things up if this thing doesn't get turned around. Jimmy Haslam has said all the right things. It's tough to stick with it when you're losing. And if you're a head coach, you always have to have that in the back of your mind, I think. But we're just sort of in a position where we have to trust what these guys are seeing and the decisions they're making. If they're wrong, they'll be unemployed, but that's just sort of where this is at. We're going to see Shador at some point, but they obviously just aren't in a rush for that right now.
Well, you would hope as a coach who is fighting for his job right now, and I truly believe Kevin Stefanski is fighting for his job. I think all NFL coaches, when they don't win, fight for their jobs. You've seen it at major college football right now with these guys getting fired, LSU, and all these things happen. You would hope that the reason I am saying this with the idea that I do trust Kevin and I do trust Tommy Rees, and I like the way they practice, and I like some of the things they do. And you're assuming that he's playing. That's the only reason he's not playing, because he's not ready, not because they're being told they have to play Dillon or whatever it is. I'm assuming Dillon's playing because he's better. To say he's much better than Shador or Shador is much better, I just don't think. I've been watching a lot of football in my life, and for me, I don't think there's a case that either guy has shown me enough, either in camp or in practice or in the game so far with Dillon. And if we see Shador, what it shows me more than anything else is the lack of talent they have on offense. And again, when you're not a franchise quarterback, and even though I'm high on Dillon, I also had Shador number 2 in my mock draft all year because I think he's a playmaker. But will he turn the ball over? There's some things that all the arguments people have are very true. You would hope with a job on your line. I always said that. I believe in coaches, and I would think with your job on the line, you're playing the best people, and you consistently play the best people. And if you don't, as you said, you'll be unemployed. So once again, I haven't seen. I didn't see enough today. He's not terrible. When people say he's terrible, he hasn't played terrible. For me, the word I've used, and I've seen this the last couple of weeks, he's not been really impactful. As a quarterback, he's kind of just, part of the problem. He makes some good throws here and there, he makes some good decisions, but he has not been impactful whatsoever. And you got to be impactful in the NFL.
So you kind of did there, and you're going to get asked this a lot because you did plant your flag with Dylan Gabriel in the draft process. And to be fair to everyone out there in the chat that I'm not looking at, he also planted his flag with Shedeur Sanders too. You were high on Shedeur Sanders in the draft. There's a draft pod out there where I think we said a lot of really nice things about Shedeur Sanders.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. I'll just put it this way: make the case for Dylan Gabriel right now. Like, what is if Kevin Stefanski called you and said, Lance, I'm having second thoughts, I'm thinking about making a change, but I want to run this by you. What's your case for Dylan Gabriel?
Well, I will say this: when everything is mayhem and everybody wants you fired, it's nice to have poise and confidence and a little bit of even keel. I think Dylan Gabriel brings you that. Now he's got to play better, and I don't think there's a timeline of him playing better. But I will say this: he's made some throws. He needs some help, regardless of his height or anything like that. And I will say this without question: his height is not the reason he's not playing well. It's accuracy and delivering the ball downfield he's struggled with, but it hasn't been because of his height. Now, if I'm sticking with Dylan, then I'm assuming that Dylan is really, really good with the process and being able to understand where he's supposed to go with the football. Is he going to the right spots when he goes with football? Does he understand zone versus man? Is he getting better accuracy every day in practice? Those are things we don't know. Obviously, you took him third. Are you using the skill set that you took him third with? Are you moving him to different launch points? Are you helping him? Are you getting touches for Jerry Jeudy? You only had 2 targets for Jerry Jeudy today. Are there things that, so if I'm looking at, if I'm Kevin Stefanski and Kevin Stefanski was to call me, I would say, don't make any knee-jerk reactions. It's easy to bench the guy in front. Is he truthfully the reason the Browns are playing poorly on offense? And I would say he's one of the factors. But is he the main reason? And I don't believe he is. I think he's one of the reasons. I truthfully do. But I would also, as you said, I was very high on Shedeur Sanders. And when they came out this week and said he's not getting any reps, and I said that should be exciting for Shedeur Sanders, and people thought I was crazy. And the reason I say that is because that tells me they're still trying to win. And if Shedeur Sanders gets in, he will also have some struggles because of pass protection and drops and lack of talent on the outside, but he will also do some good things. And I hope they have patience with him as well. So it's kind of one of those things. For me, it's you took both those guys, you and the GM and the owner. You all have to be aligned, whatever the plan is to play both these guys. And yes, I am very high on Dillon, and I'm still very high on Dillon. And I think he's a starter in this league, and I think he needs help at skill positions. But I don't think he's overwhelmed at all. Some of the other comments that I've gotten today, which I will not repeat here on a family show, but I understand, once again, people are invested, people want wins, and I'm okay with that. I never want to be a part of something where it's okay to lose. So I'm okay with the anger and the pushback. But I think that to both of these guys, you would like to see get a fair shot with some things around them. And right now, that's just not really the case. And when you lose Judkins today, and Njoku didn't play a lot, and Fan and two targets for Judy, and Bond with another drop and things like that. There's just a whole, everybody's got their hand in the pot. You have to decide if moving quarterbacks changes the other issues that are struggling with. And I don't know if they do. And then you're going to have two quarterbacks that you really haven't got evaluated very well because of the pieces around them.
Yeah, and again, it to me, so often it does come back to just that this whole operation. And listen, I do have a tendency sometimes to like first impressions. This is what I think of a guy, and I stick with it. I have not been blown away with Dylan Gabriel. I'm not as bullish on him right now as you are. I don't know if I'm looking at a starting quarterback in the NFL. Am I looking at a guy that could have a long career? Sure. You can have a long career if you're smart and you can be a backup quarterback or whatever. Like you can make a lot of money doing that. I don't necessarily see I don't see a long-time NFL starter right now in Dillon Gabriel. But that said, I'll also acknowledge Jerry Jeudy has let you down all year. And after him was Cedric Tillman out. And by the way, Cedric Tillman, we shouldn't be viewing him as some he's going to ride in and save the season type of player, because that's not who he is. You're throwing to Isaiah Bond. You're throwing to Gage Larvidan. Your best play today was an end around to Malachi Corley. Like David Njoku looks like a guy who's hurt. Harold Fannin is a rookie, and the last, he's still really good, but he's kind of looked like a rookie at times the last few weeks. Quinshon Judkins is awesome, but nobody's going to let this football team run the ball. Even the awful run defense of the Dolphins held him to 84 yards last week, right? Like, you're not going to be able to run the football until you can open up that passing game. Could Shador do that? In theory, yeah, but I don't know with these weapons that I just don't see him as the cure-all. We're going to find out eventually. And you know what? If he goes out there and he lights it on fire and we get to the end of the season and we're doing this post-game pod and we're saying, Lance, I think the Browns might have something in Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they really messed this up by not playing him earlier. Everybody in the comments you can have your field day in there. I'm not going to look at them, but you can have your field day in those YouTube comments during that show. But there's just so much wrong. And I think going back to that blame pie thing, it is the quarterbacks. It is Kevin. It is Andrew Berry. It is Tommy Reese. It is like every single person in that. This should be the worst week in that building. This should be the worst bye week for all those guys. Like, because you should be turning a critical eye on every single thing you're doing. And it should be miserable for Kevin and Tommy and Andrew. And the players won't be there all week. But when they're in there watching that film, this should be hell week for all these people, because it has been that bad on offense. And if they're doing this right, then that's what it should be. And then to your point, Lance, what you always say, then you move on to the Jets and hope that you figured it out.
Yeah, you know what? And I will say this too. And this is not, you would like to get to the point where it's not an I told you so. Right? Everybody, well, I told you so. Because right now, if Shador plays and he plays poorly, it's I told you so on that side. If he plays great, it's I told you so on that side. For me, I want the Browns to be successful. I want the organization to, get themselves out of a rut that they've been in for a while. And if Shador plays well, I'm also going to give some credit to the coaches, because the reason he would play well is because they built him towards that. And my criticism of Shador has a lot to do with his offensive line at Colorado. And when you have to do things quickly and you can't get to second, third progressions, not because he can't. I've seen him throw. I've seen him break down. I've seen him do lots of really good things. It's just the fact. I think it's because they're building him towards that, and it won't be. And I told you so for me, because I think he has a ton of skill as well. But they're going to have to get whoever's at quarterback. They're going to have to get him some weapons on the outside, so they can get some explosive plays. Because right now you're seeing. I'm not sure if either of the guys, we don't know yet, are able to carry an offense. And they can't do it with this surrounding sporting cast they have right now. And once again, I told you so when people being mad, and if he comes in and plays well, I will be very excited and not surprised, because one thing he can do, he's a gamer too. So you would hope, that he can get in there and make some plays and protect the football. But it won't surprise me if he plays well. It'll surprise me if he plays well this year because of this supporting cast, though. It's going to be really hard for any quarterback unless these guys around him play a little bit better as well.
The star pass rusher had 5 sacks, and I don't think we've mentioned him on this podcast yet, which is very telling for how this game went. I want to get your opinion on this. Just going to the other side. I thought this was the first time the Browns played a football team where they let their quarterback hold the ball and they let their quarterback take shots down the field, because that's who Drake May is, right? We know that he is aggressive. He attacks down the field. He's super accurate. I came away from this game. I was already impressed with Drake May. I came away from this game even more impressed, because to me, a guy that sits there and takes 5 sacks from Myles Garrett and doesn't blink, never seemed rattled by having 95 coming around the edge. I was really impressed with him. I mean, that's what the Browns are hoping to find at quarterback, either in one of these two guys or in the draft next year. They're hoping to find that guy. I was blown away by Drake May today. I know this isn't a Patriots podcast. I know everybody in the YouTube comments wants us to just talk about Shador all day, but I was blown away by Drake May today, because he took all those sacks and he got right back up and he delivered perfect footballs all day.
Well, what he gives you is I said it going in, I thought his best trait, even though he did all the stuff we knew he was going to do, his ability to run and get those third mediums, and you have to prepare for him as a running quarterback, even though he's not, which takes away pressure because you got to spy and you got to rush the correct lanes and things like that. So, he was very impressive today. They have enough talent on the outside, not overly talented. He's a guy that is getting into that a quarterback you can win because of. Very few quarterbacks you can win because of, but he's getting in that category because it's not an overly talented offense that they have in New England. It's just that he's, and McDaniels has always done a great job of getting guys touches, and there's some things that go into that as well. But yeah, he's very impressive. Big, tall kid, makes all the throws, good athlete. Grew up in a football family. It's kind of I enjoy watching him play. Because he's got that moxie and ability to make plays when his team needs him to make plays.
All right. Anything else here from this football game before I let you go? Anything else? Obviously, we went heavy on quarterbacks. Talked a lot about Drake May. I know the defense gave up some stuff today, but I just think you're looking at a side of the ball that just they know what's on the line every time they step on that field. First half, they held them to 9 points. Twice in the red zone, they stepped up thanks to Myles Garrett sacks. I know the final numbers. And again, they did give up some big plays. It was not perfect. It was not ideal. I can't put this on the defense until the offense actually shows up. So what did you think of the defense today?
No, I thought they played, they're playing winning football. Winning, you're getting a great look at when you don't have an offense, eventually you're going to, this is a pressure defense too. They're going to give up some big plays. They're going to, maybe they're not blitzing as much because they're trying not to give up big plays. And there's that complementary football is a real thing. And when you know that your offense can absolutely do nothing, first of all, I'm very impressed because I don't think they've been hanging their head. And I think they've looked at it as how can we do more? Which I think is important because that tells you they're still kind of bought into what Kevin is saying and Schwartz is saying, because there's no quit. You saw the Dolphins last week. They quit. They didn't quit today. They're just that defense is getting beat down because they know they have to play perfect. And do you press more because then you get beaten man coverage? And but if you let Drake May pick you apart, there's so many things you can second guess. But you second guess because the one phase of your team is really bad right now. The quarterback's not playing well. They don't run it consistently well. The offensive line's not playing well. Their skill is very, very poor. And you know that as a defense. I respect the fact that they're not hanging their head. They're not blaming. They're just getting worn down. But they're playing at a winning level, and I think they'll continue to do that. And you'll see that when the offense does some decent things, they'll be in some ball games.
All right. Well, Browns get a bye week here. We are going to, our schedule will be a little bit different this week. Obviously, no preview pod, but we'll still have Lance on to break down the film on Tuesday. So check that out. If you're listening to this on Apple Pods, Spotify, find our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. We go live after every game, pushing it back to like 8:15 to give ourselves a little wiggle room on these Sundays, but we do go live here on our cleveland.com, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, get subscribed to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us 5-star reviews. We love to see those. Or wherever you're listening to your pods, get subscribed. And of course, Football Insider, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page to get involved with that. You heard from Mary Kay and Ashley earlier. That was Lance. I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.